Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Supernaturalist, your go-to podcast for all things supernatural, where we dig deep into the myths, legends, and monsters behind each episode. I'm your host, Shelly Meyer, and today we are diving into Season 1, Episode 11, Scarecrow. This is one of the darker episodes of the first season, where Sam and Dean confront a killer tied to an ancient Norse mythology. And it's not just your average slasher. So let's go ahead and break this down and see where this goes. So before we get to the episode, we need some context on the Norse god at the heart of this story, Freyr. Freyr is a Norse pagan deity associated with fertility, agriculture, prosperity, and bountiful harvest. He belongs to the Vanir, one of the two tribes of Norse gods. The Vanir are known for their connection to nature, wealth, and fertility, as opposed to Aesir, who are more associated with war and power. In historical lore, farmers would make offerings to Freyr in hopes of a good harvest. Sometimes this included crops, livestock, or even symbolic effigies, but never, thankfully, human sacrifices. Freyr's MO in mythology is essentially to bless or curse, depending on the devotion of his followers and the respect they show to the land. He is basically a life-saving god, but his power is tied directly to the fertility of the earth. Neglect him, and the crops and the people suffer. So in Burkittsville and the Scarecrow in Supernatural, we fast forward to the supernatural version. In Burkittsville, Indiana, the townspeople are desperate for a good harvest. They've had so much plentiful, bountiful harvest of their apples, and they want to continue this. So this town is small, isolated, and obsessed with tradition. In a terrifying twist of this story, the townsfolk summon Freyr using a scarecrow, but not just any scarecrow. And it's not just the scarecrow, but I will get to that later. On the show, the scarecrow is made from human flesh. That's right, the cult believes that sacrificing humans and constructing a flesh scarecrow will appease Freyr and force him to bless the town with fertile fields and abundant crops. That sounds more like a cult. This is a dark reimagining of TV, of course, but in real Norse lore, Freyr never required human sacrifices. The show uses this to amplify the horror and stakes for Sam and Dean. So Freyr's MO in lore and on Supernatural. So in mythology, Freyr encourages growth, fertility, and prosperity. If he is pleased, crops flourish. If he's angered, famine may strike. His MO is largely tied to rewarding devotion and ensuring agricultural success. In Supernatural, Freyr's influence becomes lethal when twisted by human hands. The townspeople manipulate his godly essence to feed the scarecrow, and it becomes a living killer, striking anybody who strays too close to the fields. Essentially, Freyr's benevolence is corrupted into a vigilant MO of murder, which punishes outsiders and anybody who threatens this ritual. So the scarecrow in the show attacks everybody who enters the town's fields, and it creates a supernatural weapon out of human flesh imbued with dark ritual energy. This is not the case in the real lore. So how is Freyr put to rest? Well, in myth, Freyr doesn't need to be killed or exorcised. Respect, proper offerings, not of the human kind, and reverence are the keys to maintain his favor. On Supernatural, the solution is decidedly more Winchester style. Sam and Dean discovered that the scarecrow itself is a physical manifestation of the town's ritual. To stop it, they must destroy the first tree. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. By destroying the first tree, it severs the ritual and the connection to Freyr. This is done using fire, like most endings of entities of this sort or any sort on the show. And this ensures the evil in the first tree can't continue to harm anybody. So once the tree is destroyed, so is the scarecrow, and the murders stop. and Frere's corrupted influence over the town is broken. Unfortunately, because of this, the crops don't thrive anymore. And on the show, it's made known that towns surrounding Burkittsville have basically gone bankrupt and shut down. And so, unfortunately, this town will do the same because the crops won't grow anymore. This episode is really a classic example of Supernatural, taking a historical figure or deity and twisting it into a dark, horror-driven narrative. And isn't that the basis of Supernatural and why we love it? Frere, a god of fertility and life, becomes, in the show, a force of death through the greed and superstition of humans. Always the humans. It reminds us of how myths can be misused when fear and desperation take over. It also raises interesting questions like how much of horror comes from the monster and how much comes from the humans who empower it. Also, how do we distinguish between mythology and the ways we twist it in modern storytelling? Interesting points. Scarecrow reminds us that sometimes the real danger isn't the god itself. It's what people do to try to control that power. So that's it for today's episode of Supernatural. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Scarecrow, please hit subscribe and leave a comment. Next week, I'll be tackling Season 1, Episode 12, Faith. Now, this is one of the episodes that I really enjoyed in the first season. This explores faith and saving people, miracles, and the true power of belief. So until next week, keep your salt lights strong, your stakes ready, and watch the fields. You never know what might be lurking in the crop.